What is your understanding of responsible innovation?
My understanding is that when you introduce concepts like ethics or sustainability within the processes of innovation in the organization.
What does responsible innovation mean to your company?
So you have to understand that my company is a very large company. It's like now, since Christmas, 120,000 employees. So I don't have a control of the whole company, but I understand that the global organization has involved a scientific community with about 120 scientists, and they are there to reflect on issues. And lately they conveyed the message that not exactly responsible innovation, they are talking about digital corporate responsibility, for example, and they mention all those aspects that are also embedded into responsible innovation, such as sustainability, societal issues, ethics. And this community, the scientific community, is supposed also to be leading the innovation in the company.
You mentioned research and a research steering board. Do you see any difference between responsible research and responsible innovation?
In my mind, research, responsible research is more on the side of the academy, but yeah, it's a continuum, so it's very difficult to say it's only research or it's innovation. For us, research and innovation goes together because we try to fill the gaps, and we are not doing any basic research, that's for sure. It's applied research, so it's closer to innovation.
Mm-hmm. What are the major challenges you perceive in the area of responsible innovation?
What I see is the lack of awareness and acceptance. When I have a slot to talk about, I don't know, accessibility, after 1 second it's gone. So I have my opportunity and then there is another thing. So this, I think it's quite a challenge. You have to repeatedly, or in some occasions, or you have the momentum. Those are challenges.
Do you have the opportunity to link up responsible innovation with corporate social responsibility activities?
So I was thinking about this since I'm in the Living project. I'm thinking how to do it well, because effectively more and more the company follows the CSR. They are now talking about digital corporate responsibility. This is probably more a message to our customers, but it also applies to ourselves. And so I think this is probably the way to enter and to join maybe even vocabulary, or so that they understand better. Yeah.
How do you assess, or how would you assess the success of responsible innovation?
Well, first, if the word is going around, that would be a success criteria. Second, if it could be taken, if there are tools or methods or ways of introducing it in the research process or in the innovation process, and it's applied in some of our projects as a task or as an activity, then that would be a second criteria. If then there is no complaints that we are having produced an innovation that is irresponsible, it would be another criteria. And the latest I thought about is if our customers or clients ask us to assess them about responsible innovation, because Atos is providing services to customers, doing innovation for themselves, but mainly it's oriented to customers. So if we manage to have requests and we can help them, advise them about responsible innovation, that would be a success criteria.
Responsible innovation contains the word responsible. Who is responsible and for what?
It's up to the employee to make its job relevant and responsible, and to come up with the issues if there are. And if you take this then at the company level, I think it's also the company that needs to produce sustainable results or outcomes or innovations, and they should be the one orienting policies if any. So I think it really comes from the bottom, but maybe it's an idealistic vision.
So when it's up to the company to organize responsibility, and if it's up to the employee to be aware of responsibility, what kind of training is necessary for employees to foster responsibility?
Raising awareness about those aspects, and actually it's already coming in because the company by itself wants to improve well-being and diversity, and they're also already in our big and fortunate set of free courses. There are little learning pearls that we can take and that are in this sense in just how to behave with people, how to behave with diversity, how to even improve waste, things like that.
Mm-hmm. Atos is a big company. You mentioned 120,000 employees.
Yeah.
Do you perceive any differences between the different countries Atos is active in regarding responsible innovation?
Because it depends also on people. There is maybe an expert in environmental, development software or how to deal with high-performing computers and be sustainable. So there are groups, and I think it depends on those experts.
What are consequences of acting responsibly or irresponsibly?
Well, in the case of our company, which is digital services, of course, I may not consider everything, but it's mainly bad press. I think we are, for example, we are providing innovative services for a web portal, and if we don't do it accessible to all people, then the customer may receive a fine or may be fined now because we have European regulations for this, and it may come back to us. So I think it's it's our duty to raise those issues and to propose innovative solutions that are accessible, and that could be a consequence of irresponsibility.
One key element of responsible innovation is participation. What are the challenges of involving lead users, citizens, future consumers into an innovation process?
Well, I think first is quite obvious, is time, and then manage to have the right sample and also the engagement.
In which cases is an increased participation appropriate? In which cases would you rather recommend not to organize a participatory innovation process?
I think the answer to this question could be quite long, but of course would involve them when it's appropriate, and you make you would, if you think your solution depends on the right involvement, then you should do the right thing, because you will evaluate this against sustainability on the long time. So in this case, it should be encouraged. Of course, life is short, or the times are limited, and this would be a barrier to this. But also maybe you, after a while you have introduced these processes, it's simpler, and you can not do it for everything, but you learn from what you've heard in a previous one, and you can apply it to other innovations maybe.
In which phases of an innovation process is participation useful?
Well, in my mind, I think really at the very beginning, but in reality, I think participation should be along the whole process. Of course, then even for our testing, that's very important. But the design it's when it would be maybe cheap to revise your design. Otherwise, when you arrive to the end, it's expensive, and maybe you won't do it. So. It's great. The recommendation is doing at the very beginning.
Mm-hmm. How does your company make use of the creativity of lead users and citizens?
Since a few years now, there is this activity around workshops, and for this almost in relevant countries like the UK, France, Germany, even Vienna or Spain. We have a space where we can invite those people and have a workshop. We have methods and techniques. But really, it's not the case for citizens, or sometimes I would even mention policymakers or the whole range of population. It's true that Atos is B2B, so it's high level. We are not working with users directly, but for example, we are offering solutions for the digital workplace, and so we have consultants that go to the workplace. They are there for months, weeks and months. Actually, they tell me they don't want to have a consulting out of the real workplace. They want to go to the customer, and they stay there for days, and they also organize workshops with the end users. That's very relevant. And now they also tell me it's very important to do this before we even propose the solution. Because usually the customers, they just think of a change management consulting, but now we try to influence and say that innovation can happen only if we do this from the beginning.
Is this a very individualized process at Atos, or is participation organized in a standardized way? Or does it depend?
There is no standard. We sometimes we try to share our knowledge, and we have groups. For example, the consulting practice, they have a way to share, and we have webinars and things like that across countries and GBUs. But it's not always happening, I must say. But it's true that sometimes it's difficult. You need the time, you need to match interests and needs. So but it's ongoing.
Mm-hmm. You told me that you are running virtual, how do you call them? What's the term?
Well, I don't want to call them workshops, so because I would say hands-on sessions is a bit more appropriate, because sometimes it's quite short, and especially if it's online, it's even shorter. You cannot stay for 2 days online. It will not have the same impact or interest. So the idea is because when you do it physically, it's limited in time, in resources, and also if we want diversity and we want to involve, especially like a big company. Atos is in Madrid, a big city, so always you have this topic that regions are not getting updated and they are not involved in those activities, while it's especially for them that it's more important to get to enter in this circle and learn how to also involve their customers and expand the idea that to do things with people benefits then the innovation and makes it more acceptable then.
How many of these virtual webinars or sessions did you organize by now?
Not so many, because it's still in an internal selling process. So there has been, there are waves, and there is a lot of interest, and there is something more important that comes in, and you lose a little bit, and now we need to, again, the 3 or 4 people that push it to come again together, and because it's costly. I mean, you need to start the process, you need to invite the people, you need to have them available, you need to have more than those invited available, because they always drop. Business is business, this is on top. So
So what are your main lessons learned out of these virtual participation?
Well, for now, I was quite happy, because it's true that you have the focus. You lack, yes, this friendliness and the way that people can interrupt, but on the other side, you have something really visual that people, and then it's easier to record, I would say. That's also because sometimes you think that after 4 hours workshop, you don't have so much material, but when it's online, you have the whole material.
How does Atos anticipate future trends?
So, as I mentioned, there is a community, a scientific community, and they are in charge of looking around and producing publications. So most of those publications actually are public, but it's a way for us to really, apart from getting insights from the analysts, market analysts, and also organizing some IT challenges where university students are invited to provide ideas. So it's also a source, let's say, of inspiration and of knowing the trends that are around.
Do you focus rather on technological trends, or do you also cover societal trends and challenges?
In principle, yes, not only technological, because this scientific community unexpectedly is not only software engineers or engineers, it's also composed by lawyers or human science or life science people who end up in Atos but have this background. So it's very, their input is also pushing towards not only technology.
Do you use any kind of specific technique, such as foresight or scenario technique?
From what I know, it's mainly literature review, and also they do surveys. So I'm not sure about, maybe occasionally, but it's not something that is officially established.
So it's not a formalized procedure?
No, and we also, in our research and innovation group, we also do with projects, and we also get a lot of trends and the state of the art coming through those projects. But each project is bringing a different way of doing this. So mainly is looking around, yeah.
The Living Innovation Project focuses on the way we will live in the year 2030, so on smart homes and smart health. What are the most important responsibility issues in this area?
So from my point of view, I'm more not expert in smart homes, but more in smart health. And there I think that the collection of data is very important, and how we collect data, the relevance of this data, the accuracy of this data, how it is processed, and the algorithms that are built to make a diagnosis or to find out, to understand better, is a very important aspect, and where responsibility is involved, because you can introduce bias that have a high impact, and I think it's one of the main points.
And what are the most important innovation issues in these areas?
Again, breakthrough innovation comes from new technologies for the treatment and storage of data, like high-performing computers. This leads to artificial intelligence, and to, with all this data, understand better how the body works, the biological processes, and this allows to make a better diagnosis, or to prevent, or to work towards informing better about health issues.
What are key technologies that could be real game changers in the area of smart homes and smart health?
So I think in the case of smart health, I mentioned the high-performing computers and artificial intelligence in a way to use not only health-related data, but data that can contribute to a good or bad health, such as the context, the environment, the meteorology, other aspects.
If a company wants to engage in responsible innovation for the first time, what first steps would you recommend?
Well, first, the company, I think, should look at their own values and understand if it's really important for them and the employees and everybody in the company sure to have a mission of responsibility, or taking into account all those aspects such as societal, environmental, and ethical. And then Well, of course, try to enter the language so that there is a communication with experts or with, and then just try to include in their processes when they maybe first at just a few tasks or a few reflection moments before they start working in a direction that may be somehow irresponsible or wrong.
Mm-hmm. Are there any pitfalls they should avoid?
Yes, everybody wants to be ethically responsible, but you need to do it really, not just say it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.